Along a desolate stretch of road, the snow fell in sheets of icy glass, relentless, blinding, and merciless. Noah clutched the steering wheel harder, knuckles pale, the frayed heater on his beat-up truck struggling to fend off the cold. Behind him, snuggled up in a blanket inadequate for this type of winter, his infant daughter slept peacefully, oblivious to the tempest that could engulf them. He wasn't wealthy. He wasn't powerful. Just a fatigued dad trying to make it home with the most important thing he had left. But then he spotted it, to the side, half buried in snow, a black SUV, hazard lights flashing like a dying heartbeat. Something made him stop, and he did. He entered into the cold, boots crunching on ice, breath visible against the darkness. In the car, a woman, unconscious, lips turning blue. No coat. No time. He did not know her name, but he knew that she would die if he did not take care of her. Noah didn't have much. His old truck creaked harder than it ran, the seats duct taped together, the dashboard aglow like a Christmas tree. His shirt was crumpled, smeared with baby formula, and his eyes. They held the exhaustion of someone who'd not slept more than a night in over a year. Since Ava was born, everything changed. Since her mother died, everything became about survival. He worked warehouse nights and weekend odd jobs. Anything. Diapers weren't inexpensive. Formula less so. But he didn't complain. Because when Ava looked up at him, small hands reaching for his beard, it reminded him, she was all the family he had left. No safety net, no plan B. Just a single man and a baby girl attempting to ride out the storm, literal and otherwise. He was poor, of course. But his spirit? That was wealthy in a way that money couldn't reach. Quiet struggle, but dignity in each step. The drive home was slow, silent and tense. The woman didn't stir, not once. Her skin, cold as glass, barely held onto color. Noah kept glancing between the road and her slumped form, every heartbeat louder than the engine. When they reached his small apartment, just one bedroom above a shuttered bakery, he carried her inside like she weighed nothing. The heat barely worked, but it was better than the blizzard outside. He put her down on the worn couch, its cushions deflated with age, covered her with all the blankets he had. Then he went silently into the kitchen. A battered pot, some broth, half a carrot. He cooked soup the way his mother always made it when someone was ill. He visited her every hour, fixed her blanket, rested her head so she could breathe better. Not once did he inquire as to who she was. He did not need to know. She required assistance. That was sufficient. And then, small footsteps. Ava, tottering out of her nap, holding her frayed teddy bear. She halted beside the stranger, stared. "For her," she said, holding out the bear. Noah's heart softened a bit and opened a great deal. Morning dawned slowly. The weather outside had eased, but within Noah's flat, time continued to tread slowly, like it didn't wish to intrude too early. The woman shifted under the quilting of blankets, eyes fluttering open. Confusion on her face. She blinked at the pale morning light that streamed through the blinds, her breathing shallow. Where am I?" she whispered, her voice little more than a breath. Noah sat nearby, a black coffee mug cradled in his hand, his eyes fatigued but compassionate. He did not move quickly toward her. He merely gazed at her softly and spoke, "Safe. That's all that matters right now." Her gaze darted about the room, the tattered couch, the faded paper, the scent of wood smoke and chamomile in the air. Then she glanced at Noah, actually saw him, and after a moment nodded slowly. "Call me Elle," she said. It was a name that sounded too smooth, too quick, like it wasn't hers. But Noah didn't press. He just nodded back once, calm and steady. "All right, Ella," he said quietly, as Ava peeked from behind the hallway wall, still clutching her bear. "You're safe now." The days passed in quiet. Elle remained wrapped in blankets on the ancient couch, regaining strength little by little. She didn't say much, ate nothing but what Noah prepared, and watched the window more than anything else. But Noah didn't ask questions, not once. He left silence to do the talking, left space to do the healing. He delivered her warm tea in the mornings, soup for the afternoons. He'd inspect the thermostat 3 times a day, even when the heat struggled to hold. He sat across the room at night, rocking Ava softly to sleep in his arms, singing old lullabies with no melody and no lyrics, only the hum of love. Elle observed how his hands worked, soft but calloused, how he held his daughter as if she were precious, how he regarded her with soft pride, even when his back was sore from working too many late hours. No show. No agenda, only a man doing his best, and in a world that had taken everything away from her. It had been the longest time that anything made Elle afraid more than she was ever frightened of cold. Safety. Night, when the apartment lulled into hush. Ava was sleeping. The wind had subsided outside. Ella would wake. She slid quietly, a person who lived under observation. Noah, half asleep on the recliner, could hear the barest crack of the floorboards. Never remarked. Simply listened. From the back of the kitchen, dimly lit by the glow of the fridge, Elle would glance at her phone, one she'd stashed in the lining of her jacket. She held it up to her ear, her voice barely above a whisper. He doesn't know who. I am, and I want to keep it that way. Silence. A pause. Then a gentle, not yet. Noah's eyes remained closed, but his mind did not. He'd lived long enough to recognize when something didn't quite fit. But still, he didn't ask, because perhaps whatever she was fleeing from wasn't as lethal as what she was fleeing towards. And sometimes, the strongest thing a human can do is let someone hold their secrets without ever requesting to see them. He rolled over, muttering to the shadows, "Just don't let it hurt my little girl. Not so long ago." Ella Bennett was the indefatigable driving force behind one of the most influential technology companies in the world. The press hailed her as a genius. Investors hailed her as a visionary. But behind that boardroom door, her world was quietly disintegrating. She had just ended her engagement to Marcus, a man who seemed ideal on paper, but in private, he attempted to manage every step she took. The coup de grace? When Elle learned he'd secretly drawn up legal documents, attempting to render her mentally unfit. His scheme? To take command of her company and her wealth. She grabbed her bags that evening. No bodyguards, no farewells. Just a frantic flight into the unknown. But destiny had other plans. Somewhere on a twisty mountain road, with rain lashing the windshield and tears blurring her eyes, Elle lost control. The wreck was savage. Emergency workers told her it was a miracle she lived. That evening didn't only shatter her body, it shattered her trust, her pride, and her past. But it also provided her with something else, a second chance. Elle awoke in the home of a stranger, confused, but protected. Her phone, which had broken during the crash, now rested quietly beside her on the nightstand, fixed. No password intrusions, no excavation into her past. Just repaired. Noah had done it, quietly, tenderly, like someone who understood what it was like to have shattered things. Later that night, he returned with a brown bag of medicine, painkillers, bandages, a few basics. What Elle did not realize was that it had cost him the remaining money in his pocket. No questions, no hesitation. She attempted to say something, to question why, but he merely smiled, sat across the room, and whispered, "People break. Doesn't mean they stay broken." He didn't press, didn't ask. And perhaps that's why she trusted him more than anyone else she'd ever met. In a life where everything always wanted to possess her, repair her, or gain from her. Noah asked for nothing, and in some strange way, that unassuming gentleness was everything. That evening, as Elle was tucking Ava into bed, the child woke in her sleep and whispered a single word that shattered something within her. "Mama." She went still. Her eyes overflowed, but she didn't cry out, just sat, grasping the moment like it was something breakable to handle. Later, she attempted to cook for them, scorched everything. The rice was stuck, the vegetables were a mush, the kitchen reeked of smoke and defeat. But Noah just laughed. Ava laughed. And before long, Ella was laughing too, properly laughing, for the first time in what had felt like forever. As they cleaned up, her voice trembled. "No one's ever helped me without asking what I could give in return." Noah didn't respond. He didn't need to. Because in that small kitchen, with the lights dimmed and laughter still lingering in the air, Elle felt something she hadn't felt in a long, long time. Home. The room was silent until the old TV flickered on, a breaking news alert, a familiar face. Billionaire tech heiress Elle Bennett still missing. Police continue their search. Noah came to a stop, remote falling from his fingers. His gaze wandered slowly to her. Elle didn't flee, didn't hide. She just stood there, gazing at him, like someone who'd finally exhausted her supply of lies, her voice barely above a breath. "I didn't intend to lie. I just had to experience real safety." Noah remained silent. Not initially, but in his silence, there was no accusation, no anger, only understanding. Because perhaps he knew, sometimes the strongest people in the world aren't fleeing others. They're fleeing the pieces of themselves they're too afraid to confront alone. And Elle? She had finally ceased running. For a long moment, Noah remained silent, not because he was angry, but because he didn't need to be. He sank slowly into his chair, the same serenity in his eyes that had always been there since the start. "You don't owe me," he said in a low, gentle voice. "You simply needed assistance. That's okay." Elle blinked, shaken. Not with his niceness, but with the way he could give it with no effort whatsoever. No bill attached, no conditions, no ulterior motivations. Her own voice cracked on a whisper reply. "That's more than anybody has ever told me." And in that tenuous stillness between them, something realigned, not with big speeches or overblown declarations, but with being there, with truth. Elle had been surrounded by humans for years who viewed her as a commodity, a trophy, or a danger. But Noah? He just looked at her, and for the first time in her existence, that was sufficient. The sun wasn't yet up when Elle stood at the entrance, her backpack filled. Noah stood in silence as she knelt beside Ava, sweeping a strand of hair from the little girl's face. She didn't want to leave, but she knew she must. "I need," then, a clean legal document, creating a $250,000 endowment in Ava's name. For single parents in need, just like he had been. And lastly, an official letter from the Whitmore Foundation. "We'd like to extend an offer to you for the position of Director of Community Services." Noah remained motionless, stunned. Oil on his fingers smudged the border of the paper, but he didn't notice. Because this wasn't about money or a title. It was confirmation that kindness reverberates, that good things quietly done don't disappear into the void. Elle was gone, but her present, it was something that would continue to give years from now. Noah's life had shifted in ways he never could have anticipated. He opened a tiny garage. Yes, but it wasn't any garage. It was a haven for at-risk youth to learn, to grow, and to find their purpose. A mentoring center where teens without direction could discover their path, under the steady hand of someone who had been lost themselves. Ava played by the shop, her giggles ringing out as the children worked on engines, their hands full, their minds intent. And Noah smiled more, slept better, arose without the world weighing on him. Each day was like a new opportunity, a second chance. And for the first time in years, he felt like he was precisely where he was supposed to be. Because sometimes, the greatest gifts are those that come in the smallest package of kindness. It was a still afternoon when it occurred. A black sports car drove up outside the shop. Noah glanced up, his heart suddenly pounding. The door opened. And there she was, Elle. She emerged, her presence a low storm, yet serene in its own right. She smiled softly, her eyes locking onto Noah's. "Told you I wouldn't forget." Before he could utter a word, Ava dashed up to him, her small arms open. She wrapped Ellie in her arms and held her close, and for a second, time was frozen. Noah stood by, his eyes glassy, feelings clogging his throat. He nodded. No words necessary. Sometimes the storms we weather bring us straight to the people we're meant to rescue, and the life we're meant to live. And in that instant, Noah understood. The trip had been worthwhile. All the hardship, all the sacrifice, because they'd found one another.